I'd like to introduce, if I may, Fred Diamond, who is the Director of Construction and Facilities there at Citrus College. He's also a member of the Inland Empire chapter, and we are very proud to have him. Fred, would you please take it away?
All right. Well, welcome everyone this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. We know you've all had a very busy day, and it takes a lot to come to a presentation at 5:30 in the evening during dinner time. So we thank you very much for coming. Before we get started, I want to just take a second and give a big shout out to my fellow colleagues over at CSI-IE, and that would be Dave and Connie and Kathy and George and Carl and Marcia. Did I miss anybody, Connie? I think that covers them all. But you folks are awesome, and it's teamwork that delivers anything. As you'll see as we get into our presentation, you guys make CSI-IE wonderful. Great place to come and not only socialize, but to work with and get some wonderful information from. So thank you all for doing such a wonderful job.
Thank you.
So, all right. So this evening, what I want to do is bring you all some good information about not only the college that I have the privilege of working at and have been for over the last 10 years, but a little bit more information on how we go about doing what we do and why we do what we do for doing a total build out for the betterment of the students that we actually serve. So Dave already introduced me. I'm Fred. I usually don't tell anybody my last name. I always go by just the first name. But what I want to talk to you about tonight is really celebration for Measure Y. And when I say that, you have to think back over the past year. You know, we've been in a pandemic. People are losing their jobs. People are getting furloughed. The economy is in disarray. Why would anybody vote for a general obligation bond that would increase their taxes in a time like that? You know, if you asked me that prior to November, I would have told you I'll give it a 99.9% chance that there's no way that anything like that would pass if we put it on the ballot. And lo and behold, had I said that, I would have been proven to be incorrect. So why did the taxpayers in my area vote for Measure Y? And with all of that being questioned, I have to tell you about Measure G. Measure G is a $121 million general obligation bond that the taxpayers around Citrus College passed back in 2004. So if you go back over, 14 years ago plus, at that time, the campus had about 450,000 square feet. Measure G, which $120 million sounds like a lot of money, but for doing what it did, it's really not that much. It added 300,000 square feet to our campus and brought us up to a little over 760,000 square feet on campus. So you think about that, how many new buildings did we build? How much infrastructure did we do? And all that kind of good stuff that actually bettered the campus with $121 million. The taxpayers got a phenomenal bargain for the money that they actually paid out. Not only does it serve the students better, but it actually makes the property values go up and it serves the community better. Right now, we're in our last project that is still under Measure G, and that would be our ED building, which ED is Educational Development, and it's a classroom building, a little bit over 35,000 square feet. We actually had a bid award on that project. It was at the agenda last night. It was awarded by the Board of Trustees. We still had $5 million remaining on Measure G for the build out of that building. And if you think about the number of years that went into that and all of the planning, the time value of money, and the pro forma accounting that had to be done back in the very beginning, it actually slated a little over $5 million to be remaining to do Measure G. So if you think about that, most folks that undergo a general obligation bond in the educational industry, it's not uncommon for them to not have enough money to do at least their last project or maybe a couple more before that. They have cost escalation that goes on along the way. They have scope creep, all that kind of stuff that leads to consuming valuable dollars that were slated for the end. So with all that being said, and the fact that all of our projects are done traditional hard bid, design, bid, build, to have the exact or almost the exact amount of money remaining to do your last project is really a testament to total success. And that would not only be on the construction side, but it would be on the finance side, the overall management of the project. So we just had a bid award last night. That project, we actually had a bunch of work that was added to it due to educational changes over the years. But the extra money that will go into that building will be paid for out of capital outlay, and the $5 million that did remain for that project are still there. So that is one of the successes that goes on, and why it would be voted for Measure Y to do another general obligation bond. So Measure G, if you look at the two photos on the right, these are both brand new buildings. The one on the top right is a student services building. That one is about 55,000 square feet. The building on the right, the interior, is out of our math building. That one is about 45,000 square feet. You can see the photos haven't been doctored at all. Those are actual photographs taken by a cell phone. So you can see how nice they turned out, especially the student services building. You know, we get heavy traffic in there. The bursar's office is in there. EOPS, international students, anything that's related to helping a student succeed on campus is located in that building. So it gets a lot of traffic, heavily used, and I should say much appreciated by all the staff and students. So I talked about that Measure G would have had to have been well managed in order for the folks to vote for another general obligation bond. Not only was it well managed, but it was well received by the community. When I say that, I mean community across the board. I can't tell you how many presentations that I've asked to give out in the community, whether it be for city council, Rotary Club, all those different types of venues. Everybody wanted to know how well have the projects turned out. It is a Prop 39 bond, as well as Measure Y is a Prop 39 bond as well. With that being said, there has to be a Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. All of the folks that sit on there are active participants in the community. They take the good news, they go out and tell their constituents, and then that's what actually leads to the support and overwhelming interest in even making the campus better from there. All right, so Measure Y is, we maxed out our bonding capacity. It's rated at $298 million. That is what the voters passed. But leading up to that, prior to having the data and all of the analysis done that you have to get in order to come up with what do you actually need, we did our educational facilities master plan. So in the state of California, every community college district has to have an educational and facilities master plan for every one of their campuses. That information has to be turned over to the chancellor's office. On a normal venue, the EFMP would last for at least 10 years. There are some districts that take it out a little bit longer. I know of one that's a multi-campus district that takes it out to 20 years. The problem in doing that is the time value of money, and usually things can get lost over a 20-year period. So we stick with the 10-year educational facilities master plan. That's what our last one was that led up to Measure Y. And that one worked out well. This one, we're very confident that it will work out well as well. So out of the EFMP, a lot of people don't know it, but again, in the state of California, all of the community colleges have a program that is called shared governance. And what that means is that all of the different constituent groups, meaning management, supervision, classified, all of the represented groups, whether it be CSEA, the classified union, tenured faculty union, adjunct faculty union, all of the different groups have to get together. There's a whole committee process for approving anything. Everybody participated in the development of the educational facilities master plan. So out of that, $548 million in need was identified. That included educational buildings, ADA, technology upgrades, infrastructure, meaning underground utilities, stormwater, electrical distribution, all the way down to the panel boards and transformers, sanitary sewer, you name it, everything is on there. Site ingress and egress, which would include not only ADA, slope offsets, all that kind of stuff, and signage, but it also includes access points at each one of the gates that are actually not there. So we actually included pipe gates. That was a result of one of the things being added due to the pandemic, because we found out that our campus was entirely open, basically 24 hours a day. Anybody can come on, even though obviously classroom buildings are not open in the middle of the night, but the campus was always open. And believe it or not, some folks did use it in the middle of the night. It was not uncommon to have people walking around, walking their dogs, stuff like that, using it for athletics. The field was open. But when the pandemic came along, one of the obstacles that we had was the place has to be locked down. It has to be shut down. People have to be identified for contact tracing, yada, 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 when they come on campus. So we had to do some, weird measures in order to come up with a way to block off all of our access points and vehicular traffic on site. So having pipe gates installed, customized, of course, is one of the things that we added to it. So that would be on the ingress and egress as well. We do have one interesting property that the college owns. It's across the street on Foothill Boulevard. And currently there is a church that sits on that property. So the bottom bullet on the left-hand side, that is what the offsite facility is. That one we originally purchased, and the plan was at the time, which was about 12 years ago, would have been to convert that over to a parking lot, because unlike many of the colleges, we have a parking problem on site, that some would say. Although if you came on site on a Friday, you won't find any cars there. That's because classes are not normally conducted on Fridays, but that's a different story. But anyway, original plan was to take the church property that we own, convert that over to a parking lot. Since we have a brand new Gold Line extension that went in, we have a Gold Line station that sits directly across from that church property. So now the thinking is that the site would be better used as a convention area, not only for the campus, but for the community. And it would actually serve a lot better there. It might be a revenue stream and that type of deal. But anyway, that pretty much covers our $548 million. So educational buildings, a lot of infrastructure, and one of the other smaller major projects would be that offsite venue. All right, in the educational and facilities master plan, in going through all of the data analysis, the information gathering, all of the programming, looking at Fusion, which is a separate system that is housed at the Chancellor's office, looking at the jobs outlook in the future, looking at our majors, what are growth industries, all that kind of stuff. All of that information goes into the development of the educational side of the master plan. So we have basically on an EFMP, that goes out via an RFQ to a couple of different consultants. One is an educational consultant, and then one would be a design consultant. Those two consultants work together as our extended staff for gathering the information and doing the data analysis that leads up to the educational facilities master plan. So in going through all that process, there are a number of meetings that had to be held. The actual process took about 9 months to complete. There were meetings not only with all of the different constituent groups together a number of times, but there were a number of meetings that were held with each group separately. All of that in order to get the information together so that you can actually find out what do we need on the educational side. Once that's developed, then you can actually figure out what do you need on the facility side and the infrastructure side that supports the educational portion of the master plan. Once all of that information was put together, the data revealed that we needed a new STEM building, so science, technology, engineering, and math. With that being said, one of the things that was found is that actually we had declining enrollment in STEM. And it wasn't because students no longer wanted to take STEM curricula. It was actually because they couldn't get some of the prerequisites because they were filled and we didn't have enough laboratory space. So what happens then from our campus, because the students don't want to spend 3 or 4 years at a community college, they want to transfer. So what they do is they go to the closest neighbor. In our case, that would be Mount Sac. And if they can get the courses over there for their prerequisites, then usually what happens is they take the rest of their load there. And that means for us that we lose a student. So we don't want to do that. STEM building was number one. The next one up is career technical education building. That one is a growth industry. We currently have an auto shop that is actually partnered with Toyota Motor Sales. We get a bunch of support from Toyota, including donated cars, engines, technology. You wouldn't believe it. It amounts to tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars per year. So career technical education is the next growth one after STEM. The next one after that is a library and learning resource center building. We did find that there is a lot of space because of the transference of information and going from, everything in print material over to electronic. There's a lot of space in the library that currently isn't used properly. It could be better used. But in doing that, it would have to be reclassified as far as the occupant limit and the occupancy type. So library learning resource center is number 3. A dining hall is number 4 on the list. That dining hall that we currently have dates back to the 1970s. So you can imagine a traditional cafeteria where you would walk up and the food types over a number of decades are not the same. When we were all in school, that was very common to go up and get your meal on the actual line. People serve it to you. Now they want grab and go. They want more Chipotle style where they can go up and make custom orders and stuff like that. So new dining hall, build out not only for the serving line and the kitchen, but also for keeping students on campus to eat so that they don't drive and go off campus. We want to do a better job at serving them on the food service side. Number 5 is a classroom building and a veterans center. One of the big successes that we've had on campus is in service to our veteran students. When I first came to Citrus, again, over 10 years ago, I believe we had between 30 and 40 veteran students in the program. One of our first jobs, that program was growing. It was finding them a new space. So since I've been there, they've moved probably 3 or 4 different times from one building to another one to another one, always growing. Right now, we have over 400 veteran students, and that's only going to get bigger and bigger. Have to give a shout out to the folks that run that program. It wouldn't be growing like that if the students weren't getting served well. So that's one of the items that we want to do a better job with as well. And then I won't say last on the list, the Dean of Kinesiology would argue with me in saying he's last, but Kinesiology building is number 6 on the major projects. When you think about that, kinesiology is actually growing as well. And with that being said, the Citrus College campus was actually started out as a high school, like many of the JCs in California. It was actually Citrus Community or Citrus High School District. And the high school actually sat on the campus that we have right now. Our oldest building, Hayden Hall, is actually one of the remaining buildings that was in service to the high school, which that was actually built pre-Field Act back in the early 1930s. So kinesiology, number 6 on the list, and that encompasses a brand new gymnasium as well. All right, so in the master planning, one of the things that the design team puts together is access, not only for foot traffic, but vehicular, making it better, easier to get to classes and sort. So what you see here on this one is the final master plan that was developed. This was actually the third iteration, and we went through 2 others. And then going back through, I told you about all of the different data gathering and the constituent groups that are involved. Once everybody vetted out all of the other designs, everyone agreed that this actual design right here is the best one. So this one is the one that was adopted, put into the EFMP, and adopted by the Board of Trustees as well. So you can see in orange, those are the brand new projects that we have that we would like to do. In the red, you can see the pedestrian calculation. If you look at, if you can see my pointer, right across this area right here, which is just north of the baseball field, there is one obstruction that we have to get around, and that is the Little Dalton Wash. So it's an ancient stream bed. It's actually a causeway that is held by LA County. They come through there all the time. So that's one of the things that was difficult to overcome. We did talk about maybe covering it up and putting a thoroughfare, a street across it. And then once everybody realized that that was probably not a fiduciary responsibility to be done, in other words, it cost too much, that one kind of went out. So you can see that one of the issues that we had before, it was impossible for a student to drive all the way across campus. You would have to actually leave the parking lot, go back out on one of the city streets and drive around to the other side. So in the new plan, if you look on the main blue hash line that goes all the way across campus, that's a brand new road that would provide a thoroughfare for students to drive from one parking lot to another. All right, so on the new STEM building, one of the things that we did is, because we're going to be competing for state money. So obviously with a general obligation bond of $298 million, and when you have $550 million in need, you don't have enough money to do everything that you want to do. So with all that being said, one of the top priorities is to try to leverage the state bond, meaning that when we take a building up to the chancellor's office and go through DSA, we're going to be asking the chancellor's office to go through the process and ask the Department of Finance to fund part of our building. In the state of California, in the community college system, which is administered by the chancellor's office, there is actually a point system. It's actually very, very fair, and the awarding of cash for build out of a building in the form of matching money is done on a point system. So with that being said, all of the other colleges that are in the system, if they have a general obligation bond, they're going to be competing for the same money that we're going to be competing with. All of the competition is based on a point system. So the goal is you want to have higher points than anybody else does. So one of the things that we did is we went back and analyzed all of our projects to find out how are they actually going to score. So we want to know how many points are they going to get, what do they qualify for, and then we also take a look at how are the other colleges doing. What types of projects are they asking for? How are their points coming in? So once we did an analysis, our STEM building came back as the highest point gatherer. As you'll see a little bit further on in the presentation, the STEM building is actually the most expensive project as well. So with that being said, if I have a building that costs, say, $75 million, and state matching is going to give me, by the time they do their deductions, it actually comes out to be about 25% of the cost. So with that being said, if I can get an extra $20 million on that building, I'm not going to turn it down. That's going to be my #1 building. STEM building actually comes in at that. And I would give the probability of us getting funding on this one from the state at a little over 90% chance. So when we build out a new STEM building, it's going to be approximately 58,000 square feet, and it will in fact replace 3 other existing buildings that are on campus that were actually built back in the 70s and even earlier. Next one up on the list is the CTE building. This one is, it actually scored really good on our pro forma scoring. I would say that this one is a greater than 90% chance of getting funding for this one also. This one is a growth building, which means that we're going to be adding curricula in there. Construction management is one of the main ones that we want to grow. We also have a water technology program that we're trying to grow. That one, all the classes fill up. We don't even have enough teachers and enough space for them. That one would even grow further. All of those would go into the CTE building. Some of the other stuff that would go into CTE would include architectural drafting, all of the esthetician, any type of the haircutting, all that type of stuff. Cosmetology would be in there. Anything that is on the service sector side goes into the CTE building. This one, upon build out, it'll be almost 80,000 square feet, and it actually replaces 5 buildings. So one of the things to think about at the same time, the CTE building, even though it's number 2, it will probably go out as build out number 1. And the reason being is because the building, or the 2 of the buildings that would be torn down that have to go in here actually are located where the new STEM building would go. So the goal will be tear down the 2 buildings that are on the site where the new CTE building will be. They're not necessarily needed. Those, we have swing space that could be used in other areas of the campus. So we wouldn't lose any students. We wouldn't have any cost going out to putting portables on campus. Once the CTE building is built out, all of the other occupants and the other 2 buildings, the 2 large buildings that remain, those folks would now become occupants of the new CTE building, which renders the other 2 buildings unoccupied. They can easily be torn down. Again, no impact to the students on the swing space side, and then the new STEM building could actually be built. All right, new library and learning resource center. This one is, we talked about it being a replacement for space that's underutilized, meaning that there's a lot of area in there where you have the big, huge book carrels that are not necessarily used anymore. They need more electronic space, collaboration areas for student learning, rooms that they get to sign up for where they can come in and have study sessions together. All of that stuff is done in the Learning Resource Center, as well as new computer labs and such like that. Some of the other things that we've added, there is, if you look directly to the left of the building, there's a drop-off zone. We've actually added 3 of these on campus. One of the issues that we have right now are for folks that, you know, all of the Ubers, kind of like when you fly up to Sacramento and you used to go out, you walk out and your Uber guy would pick you up right there. That causes problems because it's not at a centralized location. So what we've done is the design team has created 3 separate drop-off zones specifically for not only Uber and Lyft, but also for the industries that serve the Americans with disabilities. So it could be a city bus that's dropping off somebody. Maybe they want to go to the adapted PE area. They're taking a class for folks that are handicapped or whatever. Any type of drop-off zone, whether it's a bus that serves special needs like that, or for students that are coming on campus because they don't have a car, maybe they hired an Uber. So 3 new drop-off zones, alleviates traffic, and it actually makes the place a lot safer. This one, upon build out, would be about 56,000 square feet, and it replaces the 1 library that's actually there right now. All right, so the new student union and dining hall. This one, if you look at the building that says CC, that is the campus center. That's actually a 2-story building, and we just modernized the upper floor in the campus center a little over a year ago. That one turned out very well. It was not, in order to do the dining hall, that was not identified in the pre-educational facilities master plan. Again, we kept to exactly what we told the taxpayers that we were going to do. All of those items were listed in the implementation plan, and that is exactly what we did. So we could have added the dining hall, But if we did that, then we wouldn't have enough money to do the last building that was on the implementation plan, and we did not want that to happen. So Campus Center got the whole upper floor modernized. It left a 1960 style dining hall downstairs. That is why dining hall has been identified on here as one of the build outs that needs to be done. With that, there would be a new information systems building that would be built into that as well, and also an outdoor dining option. A lot of the students, they don't like being inside, and what we found is that they congregate in other areas on campus that might be, a grassy area, tree lined or whatever. But I think it would be a lot better, and even the data analysis concurred with that if we had an outdoor dining option that was better designed to be 2021 style, that students would not drive off-site to go to lunch. They would remain on-site. Maybe they could do their homework a little bit better study options and all that kind of stuff. And then also build in all of the electronics needs, like charging your phone, your laptop, blah, blah, blah. All those kinds of things would be included in that as well. This one, upon build out, would be about 20,000 square feet, and it would replace 2 existing buildings. So, all right, and we talked about the veteran success and how that program has grown like crazy. One of the things that we found is that the veterans, they fall into a little bit different group. They do some things that other folks don't do. They're typically more mature than your typical student that comes in from high school. They have just a different set of needs, and making a separate space for them, all of the statistics show, and the data analysis shows it as well, that this would not only benefit them and make them more successful, but it would make the campus more successful as well. So that is one of the other main projects. That one, upon build out, would be about 44,000 square feet, and it would replace 2 buildings. And also in there would be a separate Veterans Plaza. One of the things that we've done on campus for where the vets are at right now, they actually have a garden area in the back of the building. And it's not for flowers and just regular plant material like that. They actually use it to grow whatever they want. It could be vegetables or any type of other product, but they like going out there, and I have a feeling that it helps the ones that possibly have PTSD. Going out there and working with your hands and tilling the soil, all of the results come back as that being favorable, and that's another one of the reasons why that program continues to grow. All right, and kinesiology, this would be the one that is kind of last on the list, but the dean would argue that it's not. This one would replace 3 existing buildings, one of them being, like a 1950 style barrel roof gym that isn't air conditioned. It's very small, has old bleacher systems in it, not enough space to put all of the extra stuff inside the building that they need. So this one, upon build out, would be about 65,000 square feet. And actually, there's not only 3 buildings that get torn down, we actually do some other work with some tennis courts and moving them around as well. And again, here's another point. If you look just to the right of where the build out would be, is another one of the drop-off zones. This area, I talked about the Americans with Disabilities Act and some of the folks that come in for training. They actually do that in our adaptive PE. A lot of the folks that are, maybe they're wheelchair bound or whatever, they come in, we all offer a lot of classes through adult ed. They use our pool for exercise. There's a number of things that would be done for those folks. So the drop-off zone is particularly needed in that area. All right, some additional projects and work that would be done. We have 5 or 6 portables that are on campus that we've used throughout the years. Those would be removed. We have some safety and security items. I talked about the pipe gates on the ingress and egress. Some other safety items that we would like to include would be door locks, upgraded lighting that we haven't done on the interior of the spaces. All of the lighting on the outside is predominantly LED. A lot of the, obviously the older buildings, those have not been retrofitted from CFLs, or from the tubular fluorescence. So all those need lighting upgrades. Controls optimization, not only would that be on our EMS side, but total building automation controls as well. Wayfinding, that would include signage that you would find out in the pedestrian thoroughfares. Just a better way to do options so that the students, especially when they're coming in new from high school, maybe it's the first time, they have a lot of questions, and usually most of those questions are going to be, where can I find this, or where is this class? So we're looking into signage that would also include the electronic options that are basically, AI-based, touchscreen, that type of stuff for this, so that they can not only find out where they're at, but find out where they need to go. And then space efficiency. One of the things that it's actually one of the point concerns when we have to do our point analysis for the chancellor's office is how efficient are our spaces used? Are they underused? Are they overused? That is one of the primary items that we want to do also. So when you think about, and there's a couple slides up, I'll tell you a little bit more into that, but really it's making your space not only efficient, but making it pleasant and occupiable at the same time. Signage. Some of the signage on many of the buildings is outdated, different colors. So one of the goals is to standardize all that. Even though they are standardized on the new buildings that we built, there is signage out there that is not standardized, obviously, on the older buildings. So what we want to do is get them all on the same page so that not only they look, they coordinate from one to another, but it's easier to read as well. And then we have Americans with Disabilities Act. We actually did an analysis on our ADA compliance. We did that about 4 years ago. And believe it or not, once it was totally itemized, and that included everything from signage to slope, you name it, came in at about $50 million worth of needs. So that's one of the big items that we want to attack. And then the church property across the street, that's the off-site facility, converting that over to possibly a space to where not only the community could use, but it might be a revenue stream for the college as well. That would be our new conference center. So this one doesn't replace anything outside of a church that we don't use. That would be approximately 40,000 square feet. There is enough space on the property for that. You'll notice that it is located on the right side of the property. Parking lot to the left. There is a reason for that one as well. It used to be, if you look north of, it looks like a freeway on the map there. It's not. But that area above where the conference center is at used to be a nursery. There was nothing up there. Make a long story short, about 10 years ago, they started developing that area. Now we have the gold line that comes through there. It's a transportation corridor, and there's hundreds of homes north of the building. So in order to serve hundreds of homes, what do you have to have? You have to have a water system, a sewer system, all the utilities. So on the western portion of that property, that is where all of the easements are at. That is why a parking lot would be located in that area. All right, so space summary. What we would like to do in the build out is remove a little over 300,000 square feet, and we would add a little over 320,000 square feet. So the space efficiency increases almost up to 18,000. Classrooms, we actually add 5 classrooms. We would gain 8 laboratories and 9 offices. And again, remember, in going through the shared governance process, all of that went through all the different constituent groups, was all vetted, and then was approved by the Board of Trustees at their scheduled meeting. So STEM building, I'm not going to read all the different numbers to you, but there's the dollar values on them. You can see that STEM is high, CTE is even higher. When you add up all those numbers, and then you've got the other that comes in at 242 million, you realize that there isn't enough money to go around. The bond was 298. This comes out to 548. If we leverage from the state, you're going to gain maybe $50 million. That means that a whole lot of prioritization has to go along the way. And that also means that we have to get buy-in from all the different folks on campus, because What it really means is that somebody's not going to get their project done. And in order to get to that point, it takes everybody working together as a team. So when you think about all that and the teamwork that's involved, I call it the cast of characters. So the owner, that would be the district, and the players are the architects, the engineers, the contractors, the consultants, the material suppliers, all those folks that have a play in the game. It could be something as simple as providing, a simple commodity. Maybe it's a steel company that sells rebar. Maybe it's somebody that sells paint. Maybe it's somebody that provides shade coverings for windows. Maybe it's a bigger company that provides an entire, facade on a building. Roofing materials. All those people come into play. Those are all the players. The audience are the students, the staff, the faculty, and the community. Those are the folks, when you think about it, they're the end user. Those are the ones that if you're not a success and you're not, if you don't show fiduciary responsibility and good management, those are the ones that lose. And then if they lose, that means that they're not going to vote for the next bond if you need it. And if you look at the amount of money that we have on Measure Y at almost 300, even with leveraging, we're still going to have stuff that's left out. Maybe 10 years from now, at the end of this bond, maybe we go back to the community and say, we need another 300 million at that point, whatever it may be. And if you do a good job and everybody plays together, the audience benefits, it's a success, and there's a high likelihood that they would vote for another one. So the plan for success is that the owner is the conductor of the orchestra. And the orchestra, all the people playing the different instruments, that would be the architect, the engineer, and all those other folks in there. They make up the ensemble. And the audience, they get to enjoy the music for years to come. And that means they get to enjoy the successful building and how it gives back to the community. In California, we engineer our buildings for 50 years, so that's a long time. So my wisdom for the day is that the wise musicians are those who know what they can master. And none other than the master himself, Duke Ellington. That was his quote. So with all that being said, thank you for the time this evening. And I want to make sure to invite you back for session number 2, which will be coming up in a month, and we'll carry this one on then. And then session number 3, which, Dave, I can't remember when number 3 is now.